Welcome, my friends. Today is a very foundational topic. It's how to feel safe in your body. And we're going to be exploring what that means theoretically and also giving you some really wide-ranging practical exercises, techniques to learn how to come more safely into connection with your body. When I say unsafe or a lack of safety in the body, signs of that are when it feels painful or overwhelming to start to put your attention on the sensations and emotions in your body. Maybe you want to stay in your head, or you have different coping mechanisms. Or on the flip side, some people find that the body isn't painful per se, but they can't really tell what's there. If you put your attention in the body, it's a bit vague, it's a bit foggy, you aren't too sure what emotions you're feeling. And for some people, it's quite rare that emotions come to the surface at all. And this is because the body it's not safe to be present fully with the sensations in the body. And it's really difficult to be in this situation because it's hard to feel deeply, to live fully and authentically, juicily, because the juice of life comes when we're feeling fully the juice of the body, of the emotions. But if you're struggling to develop that safety, there's nothing wrong. You're not broken. Everything is working as it should. It just means that you've gone through some intense experiences and your body has had to disconnect you from itself in order to keep you safe. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So firstly, let's talk about what safety is. So it's not necessarily feeling good or kind of relaxed or happy per se. What it really means is that you have the capacity to be present with the sensations in your body without tipping into some kind of overwhelm, or without tipping into a survival state, or without having to dissociate or disconnect from your experience in some way. So it's kind of like almost like a capacity you have, I would say, rather than a binary black or white, like you're safe or you're unsafe. And this could be different for different people. For one person, the emotion of anger might be safe. It might be intense and challenging for them, but they can contain it. They can be present with it, and it comes and it goes. Others, that might be really unsafe to go towards anger, and as soon as they get angry, they'll just numb out. The body will just go blank. So it's not something you can choose mentally. It's a capacity that your nervous system develops to be able to contain and be present without tipping into a survival state. Again, that typically is that sense of overwhelm, restlessness, dysregulation, or the opposite, the sort of the numbness, the disconnection, and so on. Why this happens? In a nutshell, we went through an experience that was too much, too soon, and too fast, or many such experiences. This is one way of defining trauma, which is when we have, too much, too soon, too fast. There's so much emotion coming in response to some intense traumatic event. Or it could be a chronic series of small events, just living in a household where you feel constantly a little bit on edge, for example. And those emotions that came up in response were just too much for you to handle. Particularly as children, our nervous systems only have a very limited capacity to be able to deal with things, and we need a lot of support to be able to, process our emotions. And if we don't have that support, then we have to push those intense sensations, intense emotions back down. That energy, that emotion doesn't disappear, it's repressed, it's held in our body, and it's continuously kind of threatening to be triggered up and come back to the surface. So say there's a lot of anger that we're holding that it wasn't safe to express in our childhood home, for example. That anger is continuously looking for an outlet. So, you might be continuously trying to come up and you pushing it back down again. Maybe you're very, very irritable, right? That's a sign of that anger wanting to come up and get pushed back down again. Or maybe, you never get anywhere near your anger, and then one day you suddenly just explode. And it's that entire history of repressed anger suddenly coming to the surface all at once. And this is the way that we end up feeling chronically unsafe in our bodies. It's that momentary. There was a moment where it was unsafe to feel anger, right? Maybe your dad or your mum was going to get really, really annoyed at you or send you to your room, or worse, if you got angry. And so in that moment, you repressed the anger. But as that keeps happening, your anger comes up, it gets repressed again. And it just keeps repressing and repressing each time it comes up. Eventually, it disappears completely. But that sense of it being unsafe is still held within you. And so you have this continuous sense of unsafety held in the body. Even as many decades later, you might now live in a loving home with a loving partner and a loving family, you will still hold that previous unsafety in the body. And so it's all to do with the body and the emotions and energies that it stores, and the fact that they feel unsafe for your nervous system because they used to be in the past. There's some point in the past where they used to be. And so unless you've reconnected to those parts, you will continue to feel unsafe in the present moment, even if your circumstances are now safe. So you can feel unsafe even if you are safe. This is important distinction to make aware. To make aware, to be aware of. How does the body respond to these unsafe emotions and energies? It tends to block them out in some way, is one extreme, sort of numbness or dissociation, going into a freeze response, going into kind of a shutdown or collapse, getting very foggy, brain fog, blankness, a sense of nothingness. Maybe a sense that you're not quite sure what it is you're feeling, a sense of confusion. These are all ways that the body can start to disconnect us from these feelings in an attempt to keep us safe from being overwhelmed by them. It can also distract us, and this is more of a kind of a mental strategy perhaps. We get distracted, we get obsessed with certain things. We spend a lot of time in our heads worrying or analyzing, trying to predict and comparing ourselves and all this stuff, which is just distracting us from the body by keeping us in the head. It can even go to the lengths of depersonalization or derealization. Depersonalization being when we don't really feel like a real person. Derealization being when the world doesn't feel real. It feels like it's a dream or a simulation almost. And those are more sort of edge cases when we've had to disconnect from our experience so much the world doesn't even feel real anymore. On the other side, we can get quite overwhelmed, and the body will start to jolt or shake in an attempt to manage all that overwhelm of emotion, or it can start to panic and look for emergency solutions, or it reaches out for coping mechanisms like drinking or working or whatever it might be. The consequence in any case is that we struggle to heal because we need to feel these emotions and energies in order to heal. And in this situation, when we don't feel safe in the body, we don't have access to those emotions. They either don't show themselves or they're too overwhelming to go near. And that's a foundational block from our healing path that's missing, that we need to fill in. So how do you actually start to reconnect to the body and to feel safe? The first step will be to learn to discern sensations in our experience. So you can actually practice putting your attention in the body and starting to label the different experiences you're having. Whether it's just, different temperature, like warm or cool, or pressure, it feels heavy or light. Or whether you're putting your attention on a tension or tingling or an ache or sadness or anger or whatever it might be. Or just the simple physical sensations, or feeling different surfaces or textures, this kind of thing. This skill can be practiced and developed, and by doing that we kind of increase the resolution of what we can discern over time. Everything gets clearer and clearer. We can also, the second step is to grow our window of tolerance. This is our capacity to be with a given sensation or emotion, and when we have a wide window of tolerance, we can feel big feelings without disconnecting. But when it's smaller, those big feelings will cause us to tip into overwhelm or dissociation. And again, you can practice by just meeting the edge of your capacity, just like weightlifting. You just lift a weight that's just at the edge of your capacity, and then it grows your strength. This is exactly the same. You feel a feeling or a sensation just at the edge of your capacity for a little bit, and come back and just keep going there, and over time your edge grows. The third step is to start to bring safety, compassion, love to the body. That's what was absent in the first place. And there are practices you can do, or just simply just do it just use your intuition. You don't necessarily need to practice to start to bring some of that safety and love to your own body. I'll go over some exercises for this at the end. But you can just kind of use your intuition, just bringing a bit of kindness. It helps to think about your body like it's a friend, that you just wish well for, like a friend who's been going through a tough time. It's easy to wish them well and to go, oh man, I hope you're doing well. I hope you get what you need. If there's anything I can do, let me know. It's like bringing that energy to yourself. It's important to know that you can't think your way to safety. So you can't rationalize or reason your way there. Of like, well, I should feel safe because, my partner loves me a lot and blah, blah, blah. This doesn't work very well. The body doesn't respond to just mere words, especially when they come from you. It responds to physicality, to really being held, either with your own physical arms, with the presence of another, your own presence, your own attention, with being heard, with being seen, with being listened to, with warmth, literally of a temperature kind, or more emotional warmth. That's the direction of travel. And again, I've got some exercises in a moment which will help you to do that. And fifthly, it needs a lot of repetition. So you don't just do this once, you do it every day for months and years. And over time, just like going to the gym, if you turn up to the gym or do some exercise every day, it's over time that you see the results, because it's taken decades for us to get in this situation where we feel so unsafe. And unfortunately, it's just not overnight that's going to unwind itself. So what are some of these practices? We can start with resourcing. This is cultivating islands of safety in the body. And I have a separate video on this. Just type resourcing into my channel and you can get even more details. And I'm going to go through these quite quickly. You can just Google the different topics or different exercises to get much more detail. We'll start with orienting. This is a way to get more present to your experience, but without going too near the body if it feels quite overwhelming. With this, you want to take your attention to something interesting in the room. Like I have a plant over here that I like. I have many plants, as you can see. They resource me and make me feel safe. It's great. And I might just get really present at the actual perception of the plant. So I'm not thinking plant and going, oh, I need to water it. I'm looking at the shadow and the light and the color and the texture and the shape of the leaves. And just getting really curious and interested, like I'm looking at a painting going, yeah, beautiful. And it's through that examination that you can get really, really present, but it doesn't feel too overwhelming. You can do the same thing with picking up simple objects. So I could take this glass, for example, and I might just touch on it and just notice the coolness, that sensation there, or noticing the hardness, or noticing the smoothness. And that's another way of orienting to the environment. And you could pick any object and just notice the texture. And how does it feel? Like the glass feels kind of nice. It's a warm day, and that coolness right now feels actually really pleasant. And it's through noticing these, relatively neutral or slightly pleasant experiences that we can learn to get more and more present. So orienting is a really great starting point. There's also self-touch. And that's, bringing one hand to the heart and one to the belly is one classic way of doing that. Just again, it's all about doing the practice, but putting your attention on the body and feeling those sensations that are created. So I can feel the warmth of my chest and my belly right now. I can feel the pressure. I can feel a sense of holding. And it's just putting your attention there, just breathing into that. And just noticing how that makes us feel. You can do the same with havening is a good one, which is when you stroke from the top down to the bottom with your hands crossed across your shoulders, and you only go from the top down. And that's a very soothing practice that you can do, especially if you breathe out through the mouth as you do it. So again, noticing the sensations and then stay with it for a minute or two and just noticing how it makes you feel overall. Bilateral tapping as well. You can again cross your arms and tap across here, or tap across your legs. Even doing some humming or just vocalizing. And this activates the vagus nerve with the bilateral tapping and the sort of the vocalizations, as well as being able to, notice the sensations. That's a really good one. You can think of a safe place or a really beautiful place you like. Just really imagine it in all the detail and just notice how it feels in the body to take yourself there. You can invite in a loving being or a friend. It could be a spiritual figure, a teacher you've had, a pet. Just bringing that person, imagine that they're with you, they're sitting with you, and just noticing how it feels to be in the presence of this safe person, this supportive person or being, right? And again, if you can really make that real, that can be surprisingly powerful. There are also different vagal exercises you can do. You can sort of type in vagus nerve exercises, and you'll get things like humming or gargling water in your throat. And the key is just to notice the vibration in your mouth and to stay really present with how it makes you feel again. Another great way is somatic tracking. So this is learning to track the sensations in your experience. So you can do this with a body scan. So just, going inch by inch across your whole body, just noticing the different parts. So it doesn't have to be inch by inch, that's quite granular. You want to find the level of granularity that works for you. Like if you find it quite difficult to discern what you're feeling, you might go in sort of larger chunks. You might start with the head and just see what you can notice there, and just do your best. You don't have to come up with some particularly special answer. The trick is just to do your best, to get the most granularity you can. It's like, okay, my head feels a bit heavy, or it feels warm or cool, or it feels neutral or pleasant or unpleasant. And then go to the chest, then go to the shoulder, your hips, your left leg, your right leg, just taking those chunks. And then maybe over time you can get more granular, going down to smaller bits. And there are many online meditations. I'll share some in the description below. Or you can use different frameworks. Like I quite like this framework called BASE, which is BASE. B stands for breath. You notice your breath, and you just use that. You track your breath for a few moments, a minute or two. Then activation, that's the A. That's noticing like a push or a pull. If there's any part of your experience, like, oh, I want to go have a nap, I want to check my phone, like, I don't want to do this. Noticing those pushes and pulls within you. I want ice cream, whatever it is. S is sensation. So noticing the physical sensations that stand out to you. So maybe there's an ache in your body somewhere, or maybe your feet are tingling, or they're quite cold. And then just explore that sensation for a few moments, a minute or two. Then E is for emotion. So just noticing any emotionality in your experience. And it can be helpful to define this quite broadly. So not just like, okay, there's loads of anger, but emotion is any slight flavor to your experience, even just the slightest sense of feeling good or bad, I would treat as an emotion here. It's like, how do you feel overall? Good or bad or in the middle? It's like, I kind of feel a bit bad. I don't feel great. It's like, okay, how does that come to you? Well, how does that sense of badness? So, I don't know, it's just kind of here in the middle somewhere. Perfect. Just noticing that for a few seconds. And it's just by noticing these are all just different ways of noticing sensation in different ways. You can also, if you want to give your mind something to do, sometimes people's minds start drifting when they do body scans. You can trace with your attention different parts of your body as a way to give your mind something to do. So you can trace around your foot, for example, or trace around your hand with your attention, just stopping every inch or so, just to explore that sensation there. Again, if you're struggling to discern any sensations, you can create sensations. So there's a kind of technique, they call it squeeze release, where you just squeeze your arm, notice that feeling, then just let go. And again, just noticing how the sensations change. Then move along a little bit and do the same. And in this squeeze and release, you're creating sensations. And so you can use it to start to sort of outline the edges of your body. And you can do it anyway. You can do it along your arms, and then go along your legs and on your face and neck. And again, this is a great way to create some sensations for you to track. Alongside, it can be helpful to have an emotion wheel. This is a big diagram that's got the names of lots of different emotions. So you can, you can put your attention on something, and if you're not sure what it is, you can look at the wheel and think, is this more in the direction of fear, or is it more in the direction of anger or shame or sadness? And then there are more granular wheels. Sometimes they have big emotions in the middle and then much more granular ones on the edge. So there's anger in the middle. Then on the edge, there's resentment, irritation, frustration, rage, that have sort of slightly different flavors that you can then start to refine your skills. Another category is movement. So this can be really good to learn to connect to your body. I like swaying is great, just really gently swaying. And you can do it sitting down or standing up. And just noticing how the sensations change, and just noticing the impact it has on you if you sway for a minute or two while breathing, slowly. You'll find it starts to change how you feel. And just noticing that. Rocking or shaking works too. You can get up and just start to shake the body out. Pausing to notice how you feel before and after. So you check in, notice how you feel, shake it out, then notice how you feel again. Bouncing is good. You can you can't see it here, but I'm kind of bouncing on my knees, or you can stand up and sort of bounce up and down on your knees, sort of like this. Shaking your arms about, and that bouncing can stimulate the vagus nerve. And it also creates a lot of movement that you can start to track and notice. Another one would be mindful dancing and authentic movement. So authentic movement is when you just stay still, maybe stand in the middle of your living room or bedroom, and just notice how the body wants to move. And just try to see if you can let it go in that way. You're not choreographing it, you're just trying to get out of the way. And I'm just letting my body move here, kind of how it just wants to. There's like a bit of a tightness over here. I can feel it wanting to kind of unwind it. And you can just let it move, slowly. Don't go too fast, otherwise you won't be able to track. But that can be a really good way of connecting to your body and what it's trying to say to you, because it's always trying to communicate to you. A brief note here, it doesn't always help to do yoga or exercise or something like that. The reason is that you can still be totally in your head when you're doing these things. It's all about your presence. That's what makes the difference between movement that disconnects you from your body and movement that connects you. There are many people who are, gym freaks, gym addicts, who have no connection to their body at all because they're completely in their head thinking about how many reps they've done, thinking about how buff they look, and not actually present with the actual sensation that's in their body. And that's the key difference. So a few FAQs, how often do you practice? How do you practice? For how long? Whatever you'll do realistically is the best thing for you. The more repetitious, the better. A small daily practice is going to be more helpful than just doing, an hour once a week. And I would say that almost any amount of practice is a big win, particularly that, it can be in these circumstances when we're feeling really unsafe, when we're feeling foggy, and dissociated or overwhelmed. I appreciate it can be incredibly hard to practice. So bring a lot of kindness to yourself in this. You don't want to push yourself or, shame yourself. That's not going to help you out. So, choose a practice period that will be realistic, that maybe you can do like a minute. Maybe you can do a minute a day. Maybe that's fine. And build on that over time. And find the practices that work for you. This is the key. Find something that you enjoy, or at least find, is fine to do. So this is why I've given you a lot of different practices. You can find one or two of these that work for you and then just focus on those. And just bring those all the way home. How will it unfold? What can you expect to happen? So the idea is that over time, it gets a little bit easier to be present with the sensations in your body, and you can discern more clearly what's actually there. So those are the two aspects. It's like the clarity and the capacity is what should slowly start to increase. And it can be very, very slow. Sometimes it can indeed, if we're in a really tough spot to begin with, it can take years to really start to shift the needle to a significant degree. But you should be able to notice changes over weeks and months. Or maybe just being able to be present in your body just a few seconds longer. Maybe you could kind of, be in your body for like 10 seconds, and now you can be in your body for 15 seconds. That's great. Maybe you weren't really sure what you were feeling before, and now you can start to discern, a few tensions here and there. This is another massive win. This is awesome. This is really good stuff to build on. There is a bit of an issue sometimes people run into here that's worth clarifying, that sometimes you do start to feel worse, or it can feel like you'll feel worse before you feel better. That's not actually what's happening. It's just that there's a lot of pain and tension and emotion that's being held in the body that we were previously disconnected and numbed out to. And as we start to thaw that out and reconnect to the body, we start to just simply become more aware of what was always there, which can be quite painful. So if that starts to happen, which it probably it does for most people, don't be alarmed. This is actually a sign you're going in the right direction, and that you need to keep going. Obviously not to the point of overwhelm, within the bounds of your own capacity, but just expect that, or know that that's a possibility. And in some cases, I said, it's really, you can feel too foggy. Like, what do you do if you feel too foggy to practice? Then it's really tricky in this situation. There's no magic answer. I tend towards a bit more compassion and kindness to yourself, of just leaving it until you have a slightly better day and then starting to practice. Or you can get support from someone, because having a fixed session with a facilitator or a therapist can make it easier to turn up and show up, and it gives you that momentum of that regular weekly or bi-weekly check-in that can focus your practice, and it keeps it at the forefront of your mind. Okay. That brings this video to a close. I do support people with this one-on-one, so if you want some help connecting to your body, cultivating safety, then reach out with the links to my website below, and I will see you soon. Bye.